Boxing, man against man, the ultimate sport. Get ready to rumble. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal. With your host, legendary trainer and boxing expert, Gil Clancy. Featuring the biggest and brightest stars, plus the up-and-comers of the fight game. Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal. My guests tonight are the Goodmans. No, they're not a vaudeville team, but these are two guys that have devoted their entire life to boxing. Bobby Goodman is vice president, and whatever else you are, president, matchmaker, the whole works for Madison Square Garden. And Murray Goodman, his esteemed father, is the top publicist in boxing today, the dean of all publicists. Murray, for a young guy, you've been around a long time. When was the first time you ever publicized a fight, Murray?
I was pulled out of a job I was working on in 1948 to do the Sedan-Zale fight. And I never came back to my job.
Well, Murray, you've had a job all these years. We haven't had any benefits for you, have we, Bobby? I mean, not that I know.
No benefits. No.
You know, another thing, before we get into the show, I got to pat these guys on the back a lot because by the end of the show, they may not be talking to me. The Walker Award given by the boxing writers in New York is the most prestigious award there is in boxing. I know I've been in boxing a long time. I don't think I've ever even been nominated. But this is the only time ever that a father and a son have both won the Walker Award. And both you guys deserve all the credit, and you both deserve the award. You know, Murray, boxing's a rough and tumble sport. We know that. And the publicists are always pictured as guys with cigars who take newspaper men out and they drink and they party and have a good time. Bobby, let me ask you this. Did that come before Murray, or was that Murray that they're talking about?
I think he created it, Gil. And he quit smoking cigars, so you lost the cigar, but the rest of it's still there.
All of these years, Murray, you must have had some very interesting stories to tell us. What were, let's say, 3 or 4 of the top fights that you did the publicity for?
Well, I thought Zale and Sedan was a top fight. I did the Marciano-Walcott fight in Philadelphia. It was a fantastic fight when Marciano won the title. I thought the fight between Ken Norton and Larry Holmes was one of the great heavyweight fights I've ever seen, where Holmes became the champion.
And Holmes became the champion in the last minute of that fight. If he didn't win that last minute, I don't think he would have won the fight.
That's right, but he fought that fight with a bad arm. And Bobby was in Norton's camp. I was in Holmes's camp, and I would never tell Bobby that Holmes's arm was hurting, because I'm not a squealer.
You didn't tell me, but we knew. We just didn't know where.
I'm sure they knew.
It was one of those kind of things. All right, that's true. What about like a recent fight? Any of the big ones that you've done for Don King, the illustrious Don King?
Well, I thought that, strangely enough, one of the best fights I've ever seen was the fight between Julio Cesar Chavez and Juan Laporte in the Garden. I thought that was one of the great fights I've seen.
You know, I agree with you, Murray. You make me feel good. I used to manage Laporte
I know you did.
when he first started, but, you know, a lot of people don't realize, and Julio Cesar Chavez was a great champion after the fight because they fought a beautiful fight, technical skill, good boxing, took punches, punishment. And after the fight, Chavez said, he said, I wouldn't have complained one bit if they would have raised Laporte's hand. Right. I thought that's the way a champion should act. Bobby, he probably won't tell me it. Tell me some of the things that you know that this guy's done to get stories in the paper.
Oh, listen, Gil.
Well, I mean, this is a cable television. It's not network.
Well, you know, the world of media, especially the newsprint media, has changed so much. I mean, years ago, when they used to go to camp with a fight, they'd go like 6, 7 weeks out, and 40, 50 newspapermen would come with them and stay in the camp. And they used to play cards around the clock, drink around the clock. If a guy got lost for 2, 3 days, you knew his style, so you'd sit down, you'd file for him, you'd send his copy.
Would you do that,
Sure.
Murray?
Got a lot of guy raises.
They used to cover for each other.
Guys, Jesus, his style changed a little bit, but it seems more informative. Is that the idea?
That's right, that's right.
But no, Murray, you were in a lot of those camps. I mean, did they ever give you a fight, Murray? I know they have. That was a real turkey, and you said to yourself, Jesus, how am I going to get stuff in the paper on this fight?
Well, I broke in with a lot of turkeys. I broke in with, when I became publicity director at Madison Square Garden for boxing, perhaps you didn't know that, I inherited a lot of things like 3 outdoor fights in a row. Charles was fighting Lesnovich. Graziano was fighting Gennaro. And Sugar Ray Robinson was fighting an old Steve Beloy. And they were all outdoor fights, and they were tough sells, despite the names that were involved.
Well, why? Because they figured the opponents were weak in every
right.
case?
That's right.
Takes 2 to tango?
And they were not outdoor fights.
You know, Murray, being that you brought up the name, most people, just about everybody I know, say that Ray Robinson was the greatest fighter that ever lived, pound for pound. I think you have a different
I happen to
slant on that.
I happen to feel like Joe Louis was the greatest fighter of all time. I loved the man. I thought he was a great thing for boxing. Sugar Ray Robinson was the greatest welterweight I ever saw.
Oh, you know, you go against the grain. You started to tell us that you did not think that Ray Robinson was the greatest fighter pound for pound that ever lived. Why?
Well, I thought he was the greatest welterweight I ever saw. But as a middleweight, he was, maybe he was over the hill at the time, or the young people were starting to catch up with him. But I thought he was just a little above average. Not that great as a middleweight.
Well, he scored some great, spectacular wins. I mean, knocking out Gene Fullman with 1 punch, knocking out Bobo Olson.
Yeah, but he also lost to Fullman.
Yeah, I know. Hey, he lost to my fighter. My first fighter I ever developed, Ralph Tiger Jones, beat Sugar Ray Robinson. That's one of my claims to fame.
He lost to Randy Turpin. You know, these kind of things. Ray was great. And actually, I'll tell you a funny story about Robinson. When it came time to sign for a return with Fulmer, Jim Norris called me into his office and said, Murray, he won't sign a contract for the return fight unless you go to his camp. I said, well, I'm the boss here. How can I go to camp? I'm not a camp man anymore. He says he won't sign a contract.
They wanted you in the camp as the publicist.
That's right.
Well, that's the comp.
So I was written into the contract, and he signed it.
Well, you know, whenever I took Griffith to camp, I used to insist that John Condon come up just because I wanted to drive him crazy. I mean, you know, I used to, every time I think of a good publicity idea, I tell him, I don't like it, you know. That used to bother him. You know, Murray, we were talking about, you talked about Ray Robinson a little bit. How would you rank your top 5 heavyweights of all time?
Well, I said Joe Louis is my top. I got to go, and I'm only going to rank people I've seen fight.
Okay, that's fine.
I've got to go with...
That's going to leave out James Figg, Goliath, and a couple other people.
But the next 4 are almost together. I can't pick them apart. I got to class Larry Holmes in there. I got to go with Marciano. I can't include Tyson. He's still active. I've got to go with Aneza Charles, who was a great light heavyweight, but I thought he beat Marciano in their first heavyweight fight.
Mm-hmm.
And the one other, I think Joe Walcott was a great heavyweight.
You left out Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali.
I left them out for a reason.
All right, Bobby, what would your top 5 heavyweights be? The younger generation,
My top 5 heavyweights, I've always been of the theory that Joe Louis was the greatest I'd ever seen. But I go with Joe Louis, Muhammad Ali. I think I'd have to include Holmes. A young Sonny Liston was real tough. And the fifth one, I'd have to say Marciano.
Well, I'm not going to bother ranking mine, but I felt that Joe Louis was the greatest heavyweight I ever saw. And the reason was, you know, you watch these guys today, they fight 15 rounds, they come out, nobody even has a mark on them. Not all the time, but most of the time. When Joe Louis fought, if he hit you with a jab, you had a lump here. If he hit you in the nose, your nose started to bleed. I mean, every punch he threw had an impact.
He talked to Braddock about that fight he had with Lewis. He said that left hand was like a machine gun. He had his head so out of shape, it was ridiculous.
You know, Murray, what is this here? I know it's the Hickok. Tell us about the Hickok Award and the Hickok belt.
The Hickok Award was a creation that started with a middleweight belt, actually. We decided at the time, Ray Hickok asked me to create something for the middleweight division. I created a belt, and the stipulation was that you win it once and defend it once, and it's yours. LaMotta, who won it first, refused to give it back.
Leave it to Jake.
So we decided not to challenge him in court. It was silly. So we came up with the other idea, which was to give an award to a professional athlete, which was unheard of. Nobody honored the professional athlete. And it ran for 27 years.
The Athlete of the Year.
The professional athlete of the year.
Well, can you tell us 2 or 3 guys that won this award?
Well, it started with Rizzuto. 13 baseball players won it. Sandy Koufax won it twice. The only one ever did it.
And Murray, before we go any further on the Hickok Award, I know it was the most prestigious award that a professional athlete could win. How did they pick the winner? Who picked the winner?
We had a voting committee of, at one point, 300 members of the media, sportscasters, writers, etc. And we'd get a tremendous average of return. So they picked the winner, and we had 12 monthly winners, and then one final winner out of the 12. And that's the format today, now that it's coming back. The last winner of the Hickok Award was Kenny Stabler. Muhammad Ali won it, Jimmy Brown won it, Lee Trevino won it, Arnold Palmer won it.
And I know Sandy Koufax again. Yeah?
Twice, yeah.
Yeah, right. We got that already. But anyhow, it's back now. Hey, Bobby, you're not just here as a yes man. You know, everything your father says, you keep going like that with a big smile. What about, you're very influential in the God. Don't you think that would be a good cable show to have the finals, even if they had the, like they do with Miss America or whatever, the 12 monthly winners, and then have them all there, you know, and the third prize? That would be a great television show.
Make a great TV sports show. To do an annual dinner with the award proceedings and everything leading up to it, with the clips of their performances during the year, and the anticipation, and the ballot was very secretly kept. There was only 2 people that knew who won it, and that was him and I.
Right. But Murray, you know, are you proceeding along those lines, Murray, to try to get a cable show out of this?
Well, we haven't, we've discussed it, but we haven't challenged anybody to buy it, because the people who are now sponsoring the award, the Potamkin Corporation.
Victor Potamkin.
Victor Potamkin is a fantastic
great sports guy
with a fantastic family behind him, and they love the award, and they've guaranteed that they'll do it for at least 2 years, which is something I didn't even bargain for, and they want to do it. They love it, and Victor is a man of vision, and he's going to tell us what to do, and I think he'd go for a cable show.
Well, I hope so. Murray, speaking of vision, I know a lot of times you had tough times getting stuff in the paper. Tell us some of the crazy things you did to get stories in the paper when you were promoting a fight or publicizing a fight.
One of the toughest fights I ever had to publicize was Lesnovich and Charles. Lesnovich was known as the Russian. So I brought 3 Russian bears.
Live Russian bears?
Live Russian bears from Palisade Park up to the training camp in Chatham Township, New Jersey. And when they saw the bears, these guys ran for their lives, including Graziano was training there. They all ran away. I said, don't worry, these are trained bears. Well, one of them got loose. And Graziano was yelling to Gus, "Don't be afraid, Gus," and he's behind the door in the house. "Don't be afraid, Gus, we're behind you." But,
Far behind him.
But it worked out fine. We got a lot of mileage on that.
You got another crazy story like that?
Well, we,
No, now I know why you're crazy, by the way, Bobby. Take after your father. Go ahead.
well, of course, when Graziano was training, we used to walk into the nearby town so he could window shop. And I'm walking along with him.
It's too cheap to buy anything.
Walking along with Graziano and one of the sparring partners. And I'm standing by listening to him, and the kid says, "Gee, I'd like to have that." He says, "Why don't you steal it?" And Rocky says, "I never stole nothing." And the kid says, "What do you mean you never stole nothing?" He said, "I never stole nothing unless it began with an A. A watch, a jewel."
But he never stole nothing. And I know why you were along on these trips. You were along to carry the money because it was against Rocky's religion to carry any money with him. Still is, isn't it, Bobby?
It still is.
Let him chase you, not me.
So I remember we were in a bar one night. And Rocky bought a drink, and Duke Stefano passed right out on the floor. Right out.
Bought
never
the drink?
Never bought a drink before in his
He
life.
paid, you saw him?
Yeah, I was there. Duke just went right over.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of guys like that, you know. I'm hoping to have him on my show, and I might as well put a knock on him right now. The most famous artist, sports artist of all time. You know who I'm talking about? Who?
Leroy Neiman.
You said it. I didn't say it. I mean, he's also been America's guest.
He's great. He's great.
For a long, long time. Yes, he does so many good things. Like he'll donate a $10,000 painting, but it would kill him to buy a $4 drink. You know, it's one of those kind of things. Murray, in all of this boxing career, I mean, you've had a rough, tough, long life. Do you regret any of it, Murray, or are you in love with boxing still?
I don't regret anything I've ever done. I may have do it differently, but I don't regret it because I'm a big boy. I make mistakes, and I create my own thing. So I've done a lot of things I shouldn't do. Like when he came out of the Coast Guard, I took a job with Harry Wisner so he wouldn't get fired before he was hired. You know, things like that.
Well, we've been picking on you long enough, Murray. Now I want to go to the young Goodman. In a few seconds we have left, I want the people out there to write down the name of a guy who I think is the best prospect I've seen in a long time, the kid from Holland. Just tell everybody his name,
my goodness.
then we'll say goodbye.
There's a kid named Regilio Tour, T-U-U-R, Regilio Tour. Remember the name. He's the guy that knocked out Kelsey Banks in the Olympics, and he's great.
Okay, hey, fellas, thanks very much. Enjoyable as usual. Murray, thanks very much, and many, many years of success for you. And Bobby, my pal,
Okay,
thank you again. And we'll be back again next week.
Boxing, man against man, the ultimate sport. Get ready to rumble. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal. With your host, legendary trainer and boxing expert, Gil Clancy. Featuring the biggest and brightest stars, plus the up-and-comers of the fight game. Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Gil Clancy's Boxing Journal. My guest tonight is the boxing coordinator for ABC Television, Bob Yalen. And before we begin talking to Bob and questioning him, putting him on a hot seat, I want to tell you a little something about this young man. You know, when I was in grammar school, 8th grade, I'll never forget it, my teacher told me that a successful man is a man that works at what he likes to do. If you're that fortunate, it's just great. I think I've been very fortunate because I love boxing and I'm working at it. But here's a young man. I was a matchmaker at Madison Square Garden. He must have been about 16 years of age, came over and introduced himself to me, and told me he was a fight fan. And he said he was keeping records, and in case I ever needed anything to call him, he'd probably and try to help me with the records. Well, I want to tell you that after I talked to Ring Magazine and wherever else, and I couldn't find the record on somebody, I'd call young Bob Yalen, and he'd have everything for me. It was just a great addition, and he was a great help to me, and I knew he would be a great help to whoever would hire him in the boxing field, and eventually now he has this big job at ABC. Bob, tell us, how did you get started in this boxing business? I know you were a fan, but tell us from the beginning, what turned you on?
Basically, as you said, I would look at Ring Magazine, I would look at the different records that were being put out, and I always enjoyed math and statistics, so I decided to start keeping my own records. And as time went along, I was such a big fan, I would write to anybody. Anybody I could find an address on, I would write to them, ask them, tell me about boxing in your area, tell me about the fighters, and keep me in touch, and just started compiling the information. And basically it just grew from there. And then I'd come to the garden and start bugging you.
You started bugging me, but then did other people start to call you for your records, Bob? I know I told a million people, if you need anything, call Bob Yalen. And as a matter of fact, there was no charge. He would just do it because he was a fight fan and he loved to do it. Did a lot of other people start calling you then, Bob?
A lot of people started calling me up. My name, as you said, started getting known. As you said, you spread through word of mouth. You say no charge. The only charge was my parents would get calls at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'd take it out of my hide for getting these phone calls. But otherwise, it just through word of mouth, people started, I guess you could say, trusting what I was sending to them, and I just enjoyed doing it.
You know, it's a funny thing when you're in the boxing business. There are different time zones, and I've got many of those phone calls. Get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the guy say, "Did I wake you?" And I say, "No, I was waiting for your phone call." But you know, Bob, now you kept the records. You were up there in Connecticut. You come down to as many fights as you could. When was the first time that anybody approached you about working and paying you for doing what you like to do?
Basically, all 3 networks at the same time. When I was in high school, I wrote my own magazine, which got some good reviews. And when I went to college, I had to cease publication because I just had no time. But I would keep up with the records. And about my sophomore year, all 3 networks basically said, "We would like to use your information. Can we work out a deal?" And each network at the same, say within a couple months of each other, would offer me a deal. We'll pay you X amount of dollars for each record. And a supplement, obviously, helped me tremendously through college. Because in college, you're not really making any money. And here I was making some money off of doing something, as you said, that I loved. And couldn't have worked out any better for me.
I hope all you young guys out there are listening to this, whether it's baseball or whatever. There is a chance, if you really work hard enough at it, the way this guy did. And then you graduated from, what college was it?
University of Connecticut.
University of Connecticut. And then did you apply for a full-time job, or did they come looking for you, or how did it work out?
No, first thing I did, I graduated with a couple engineering degrees. So I was a nuclear engineer for a while. Designed how to fix reactors and problems with reactors. And a couple years ago, ABC wanted to make Alex Wallow an announcer. And they were looking for somebody to take over for Alex as the boxing coordinator for ABC. And I came down, interviewed, and eventually got the job.
Well, that's great. And, you know, you're in the same position that Rick Gentile is at CBS. And it's a tough job because you're the guy that's responsible for these fights that they put on ABC. And I have to congratulate you because you had one of your best years last year.
Thank you.
As far as boxing is concerned. And, you know, we are friendly rivals. I work for CBS. And you know, there's a misconception, you know, and I'm sure you're the same way that I am. If there's a fight on ABC, I root for it to be a good fight. Because we're basically in the boxing business together. I mean, some people might think it's competition. Gee, I hope their fight's terrible. That's the worst thing that can happen because the fight fans 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they know they saw a bad fight. They don't remember really whether it's ABC or CBS or whatever.
Sure. You know, people want to see good fights. But the more good fights that are on, doesn't matter what network, the more people just, in turn, keep getting excited about boxing, more excited. Good for the ratings, good for boxing in general.
Bob, you know, they always say there are a lot of characters in the boxing business. It's a tough business. There are a lot of dishonest people. I don't think there are any more dishonest people than any other business, but it's a little different than nuclear energy, what you were trained to do. When you're making a match, how does it come about? Do the promoters contact you, or if you see somebody good, do you call the promoters?
Both. If a promoter calls me, fine. Obviously, all the promoters are going to call suggesting matches. But again, I like to, if I see fighter A is fighting for, say, an Aram, and B is fighting for somebody else, if I think it can be matched up, I've got no problems calling, whoever it takes to maybe try and get the fighters together.
You know what I used to say, and I really think that we should be licensed by somebody, because the way it is now, we can deal with anybody. I used to tell my son, I said, you want to be a boxing promoter, go out and get yourself a roll of dimes and just keep suggesting matches to the network. But I'm sure you do the same thing we do, because we have so many guys calling us up for matches, and I know they can't produce the match for one reason or the other. Either promoter, is that what happens to you?
Quite a bit. As you said, you pretty much get a feeling, being as you said, I may be young, but I've been in it for a number of years, who can really control who and what they can and cannot deliver. And if it's an unknown that calls you up and says he can deliver Mike Tyson, you obviously know that's not going to happen, which will occur at times. They'll come up, somebody will call up making exaggerated claims. You politely say, thank you. If you can't deliver it, fine, call me back with something written.
Bring me the contract. Right.
Exactly.
And Bob, do you look like the one fighter now to try to keep promoting on ABC? Like, for example, we brought Mancini along, we brought Hector Camacho along early. As a matter of fact, even Jerry Cooney, his first fight was on CBS. Do you do that? Do you look for like one talent and try to keep a relationship with him?
Not specifically. In a nutshell, I'd like to put on the best, obviously the best fights for the best money. If we have 16 shows and have to put on 16 different fights, if I think those will be the best shows, that's what we'll do. But there are some fighters now that we're pointing to that we think will be talented and are producing good ratings or producing good fights that we'll try and stick to. For example, we've had Virgil Hill on a number of times. We've had ABC's always been associated with the Olympians. We had Breland on last year, and we'll have Breland again March 3rd this year, fighting Lloyd Hunnigan. That'll be our second fight of the year. So I don't specifically point to doing a lot of fights with the same people, because again, a fight, the public can just as easily get tired of seeing the same faces if he doesn't particularly pan out. But I'd like to think we can deliver the best fights for the money we're paying, whoever it may be.
Well, we have the same policy. A lot of people don't think so. They think we favor certain guys over others. I'm sure you get that all the time.
Oh, sure.
How come you buy all your fights from Aram? How come you buy them all from King? And the reason we do it is because they're offering us the best fight for the least amount of money, and that's basically what it boils down to. Bob, have you had any real bad disappointments where you thought you really had wrapped up a good fight and you were very, very happy, all of a sudden you got the phone call, the fighter got hurt, or he can't make it, or...
Nothing particularly major over the last couple of years. We had a couple of things with Starling was going to fight Hunnigan a couple of years ago. That fell apart. And at a time before Hunnigan was undefeated after he had won the title from Curry, which I thought was going to be a terrific fight. We've had Breland in a big match or two that he got injured, that postponed fights. But so overall it's been fairly productive and fairly, not many disappointments.
You know what? When you get old-timers disease. So I'm trying to remember, where did Jeff Harding come in? Was that with ABC or NBC?
That was ABC. All
right, you talked about disappointments. At the last minute, you had a guy pull out, and you brought this guy all the way from Australia. Tell us a little bit about that one.
True, but it turned out not to be a disappointment. It was, as it turned out to be one of the most exciting fights I've ever seen. Lalonde got,
got religion.
Got religion and got cold feet, whatever it may be. About 3 weeks, a little bit more than 3 weeks before he was scheduled to fight Dennis Andres last June. We looked at the list of contenders. We thought, should we try and bring in another fight? I had talked with the Australians, and they had been telling me about Jeff Harding. And again, I still now keep track of all the fighters, keep up with my records, and contact a lot of people. And I knew Harding was fairly talented. I knew he was raw, but I had seen what had happened with Jeff Fenech, who was, again, he's undefeated, 3-time world champion, had won his first world title in his 7th pro fight, I believe it was. So I knew that if he was cut from the same mold, he was an exciting fighter, and with his style with Andres, if he matured, if he bloomed in time, it could be a good fight. And I'll be the first to admit, we got lucky, and it turned into a terrific, dramatic fight.
Again, you say lucky, but you did your research, so it wasn't all luck, and it was probably maybe the fight of the year when he came from way behind. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, that's what this young man does, and that's why ABC is successful. They put on great fights. I hope we can do the same at CBS. And Bob, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Gil.
a pleasure.
Appreciate it. My honor.
Former policeman Cali